So today I'm going to be taking a look at a budget phone from Honor, the Honor 70 Lite, released back in March. Now you'd be forgiven to think that it looks very much like the Honor X6 and the Honor X8 5G, which to a certain degree it does, but there are plenty of differences. Now of course Honor do quite a lot of budget phones, so why should you buy the Honor 90 Lite? Alright, 20 seconds into the video and I've already got the name wrong. Honor 70 Lite, not the Honor 90 Lite. Well, in my case, for buying this to review, I actually found this basically brand new model with the box for just 99 quid. Now it's only 150 quid brand new from a shop, so 99 quid is actually a really great buy. But you get a 6.5 inch 720p, this time with a 90 Hz refresh rate, which is a higher refresh rate than you definitely find on the Honor X6. It is still only a 720p, but it still is a pretty good display and it is nice and responsive. You get that dewdrop notch in the top center, and then you get a pretty sizable chin on the bottom, and then of course around the edges as well. It is just a TFT LCD display, and that dewdrop notch selfie camera is only an 8 megapixel selfie camera. So it's not the best in terms of hardware, but it is still plenty enough for an average user that just wants to use the phone for a bit of social media and texting and all that sort of stuff. The display is pretty good, it's nice and sharp, but given that it's a 720p display, I think it actually performs a little bit better than the numbers would suggest. And then of course the phone is made of an all plastic design. You get a nice matte finish on the back instead of the glossy that you find on the Honor X6. Triple camera system up in the top left hand corner with the LED flash, and the sides are flat, which is quite nice. Flat but slightly rounded, if that makes sense. And then you get your power button with fingerprint scanner, which is nice and responsive. And then you get your volume rockers above that. On the left, you get your SIM tray, which houses your SIM card, of course, and then provisions for a micro SD card. At the top, you just get a microphone. At the bottom, you get a headphone jack, another microphone, USB-C charging port, and speaker grill. So overall, the phone is pretty basic in terms of its design. It's not going to win any awards or anything like that. This matte finish on the back is quite a nice sort of speckled design, very similar to what I found on the Honor X8A. Check out that video if you haven't already. And then the 50 megapixel triple camera setup is, like I said, just a 50 megapixel main camera, and then you just get two 2 megapixel macro and depth cameras. So there's no ultra wide camera on the Honor 70 Lite, which personally for me is not the end of the world, as the 5 megapixel ultra wides that Honor tend to put on their phones are really bad. I mean, I'd rather not have it, and in this case you don't, so it's not the end of the world for me, and I'll get into the camera quality towards the end of this video. So overall, I think the design of the phone is quite nice. It's quite light and it's quite easy to hold. It's quite easy to manage in the hand despite having a 6.5 inch display. And overall use of the phone, of course, you get One UI on top of Android 12. So there isn't an Android 13 at the moment. But One UI, as I've mentioned in previous videos, is one of my favorite skins. There's not a huge amount of bloatware on the phone. There's a few preloaded games, but there are plenty of customization options on One UI. You can change your themes, your icons, all that sort of stuff to customize the phone how you want it to look. So overall, Magic UI is a great skin to have. Magic UI, One UI, and of course stock Android are probably my favorite skins to use. But yeah, plenty of customization options, and of course there is the usual settings menu on there, so you can log into your Wi-Fi, change your passwords, do your biometrics, battery information, storage information, all that sort of stuff is all here on the Honor 70 Lite, as you would expect on, to be honest, any phone these days. And then inside the phone you get a 5000 mAh battery, which is plenty for a full day of use. You could even get 2 full days if you're a light user, and you do get support for 22.5 watt fast charging on this phone, which is a really great feature to have on a budget device, and you do get that charger in the box, which is a plus. I know the new Honor X6A, I believe, and the Honor 90 Lite don't come with chargers in the box, so this was one of the last ones to get that in the box. But yeah, something great. USB-C, so there's no micro USB on the bottom, so you do get those nice fast charging speeds and probably pretty fast transfer speeds when taking things off of the phone as well. And then powering the phone, this is an area where of course Honor had to cut back a little bit. You get the Snapdragon 480 Plus 5G, which is absolutely plenty for basic performance, and it of course does support that 90 Hz refresh rate, so overall swiping is relatively smooth. It's not going to handle very high intensity games or lots of multitasking or anything like that. Switching between the apps isn't going to be as fluid as what you'd find on a more expensive budget phone or of course a flagship device, but it is absolutely plenty for everyday use. For me, although I review phones on this channel, I am just an average user. I don't use the phones for intense gaming, loads of video editing. I do that all on my laptop. So even for me personally, if it wasn't for certain other things that they cut back on, this would be absolutely fine for me to use every single day. So don't be put off if you're just a basic user. This is absolutely fine. You do also get 4 GB of RAM and 128 GB of expandable storage. So it is nice that budget phones are now coming with 128 GB of base storage instead of the 64 or even the 32 gigs that used to be the case a few years ago. So 128 gigs should be plenty for most people. Of course, you're not going to get loads of high resolution 4K video from this camera, so you're not going to be using up loads of space that way. But yeah, 128 gigs should be plenty for your games and your apps and your photos and all that sort of stuff. And of course, you can expand it if you want to have a little bit more storage. And then lastly, if I quickly talk about the 50 megapixel camera on the Honor 70 Lite. It is a similar story on this phone than what I found with most of the other Honor budget phones that I've reviewed. Main camera photos are okay. They don't tend to have as vivid colors as what I found on other brand phones. 50 megapixels, of course, pixel bins down to 12.5 megapixel photos. And these photos, like I say, they're pretty good. They're all right. There's plenty of detail, but certain areas like finer areas aren't rendered that great. There are a lot of smudgy areas. And then the color reproduction is a little dull for my taste. And of course, with the lack of ultra wide camera, there is just that main camera. You can do a digital zoom on the camera, and because you've got that 50 megapixel resolution, it does a relatively good job doing like a 2x crop. It's not too bad. Depth information is of course taken care of by that depth camera, and that does a pretty good job with your portrait shots. So nothing to complain about too much with that one. And then the 2 megapixel macro camera, of course, is about expected at that resolution. Not the best photos, low resolution, pretty bland colors. I don't tend to use macro cameras at all. Of course, depth cameras you could probably do without, but they are being used a lot of the time without you even knowing. And then video recording tops out at just 1080p at 30 FPS, which to be honest is about expected at a phone at this price. And 1080p 30 FPS is also supported on the front-facing camera. And the 8 megapixel photos on the front-facing camera are again about as expected what you'd find on a budget phone. Nothing to write home about. Reasonable detail, but again, nothing spectacular. So overall, the camera system on the Honor 70 Lite is okay. I wouldn't personally say it's anything more than just being okay. Of course, there are plenty of other budget phones on the market with better cameras, mainly from Samsung and Motorola. I do find that the Honor phones do tend to slip behind those two brands when it comes to the quality of their cameras. But that's my quick look at the Honor 70 Lite. Overall, I really like the design of the phone. It looks quite nice. The 720p display doesn't bother me. The 90 Hz refresh rate is a great thing to have. Battery life is incredible. One UI and the software experience is pretty good. I do like Magic UI and all that sort of stuff on the Honor phones. The only main letdown for me, and this is going to be the case with a lot of my other Honor budget phone reviews, is just the camera. It doesn't hold up to the other budget phone brands on the market, like I said, namely Motorola and Samsung. But do let me know down in the comments what you think of the Honor 70 Lite. Is it a phone that you consider buying, or are you using one now, or another budget Honor phone? Please do let me know down in the comments and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more videos like this. I've got plenty more on the way, and I'll see you in the next one.